Thanks for joining, everybody. We're going to talk some audio. We're going to be discussing how to amplify your marketing efforts with audio for the next 20, 30 minutes or so. And we're going to cover why audio is important to your brand and marketing. We're going to talk some stats, give some data to support this idea. We'll also go over some examples of things you can start implementing today, if you so choose. And then we'll wrap it all up with any questions that you may have. So feel free to enter any questions in the chat. And at the end, we'll go through this and we'll have that discussion. All right, so just the first to kick this off, allow me to introduce Dan Dinsmore. Michelle was slated to be here. Unfortunately, she had something that had to take her away, but Dan is here to fill in. So Dan, why don't you say hello?
Hello, Dan Dinsmore. I am a principal and founder of Overit. Have a lot of experience in audio, been part of my life since a child. So I'm really happy to be here to fill in for Michelle.
Yeah, so my name's Adam Claremont here at Overit as well. I've been working professionally in audio for over 15 years. Spent a lot of time working in music and audio post for film and television. Traveled the country working at live sporting events and fashion shows and other entertainment, of course, branding, podcasting, and honestly, just doing what I've wanted to do since I was a kid. And, I initially became interested in audio through music, which I think is how most people probably get interested in doing what I do. But as I moved through my career and I started learning more about all the opportunities in audio and doing more things, I realized what I really love the most about it all is actually just storytelling, just boiling it all down to storytelling. So taking the tools at my disposal and crafting a story through audio that can influence someone's mood. Psychology of all that really interests me. But so, really in essence, just kind of increasing a focus or drawing focus to a story. That could be through entertainment or marketing purposes, like a podcast, a song, a film, an advertisement, an audiobook, anything that makes noise. It just all is fascinating to me. But all just kind of boils down to stories again. And I think stories have always been at the core of so many marketing efforts. So if you're here today, no matter what your field is, your craft, your expertise, whatever vertical is, I think you can probably relate to that a little bit because we're all just trying to reach an audience and tell a story and get a response, I think. So the question becomes, what avenue do we take to do that? And today we're going to stroll down the avenue of audio. So let's just begin. Why audio, right? Well, simply put, audio can influence someone's mood, like I mentioned. Pretty obvious to anyone with a screaming baby at home that won't be consoled. Kind of puts you on edge. I know I deal with that frequently. If you go see your favorite band at a festival, you get an adrenaline rush and that feeling it's great, Or if you like a guided meditation, it's calming, it's relaxing, it relieves anxiety. So obviously, we can all agree that audio plays a big part in our mood. Why audio? Well, audio, again, is memorable. A study shows that audio ads drive 24% higher recall on average than display ads, 28% more likely to be seen as informative than display ads. An analogy I like to talk about is the Beatles. And I think about what sticks in my head, like there's probably everybody here who can hum along to at least the Beatles melody or two. You can probably hum more melodies of the Beatles than you can recite their lyrics. So if I were to put my science hat on, the reason being is that, there is a reason. Melodies actually persist more in long-term memory than lyrics. So, and we can actually remember lyrics in most cases better when there's a melody attached to the lyrics. So again, just creating music and tones is going to be embedded deeper into our memory and into our brain. So an extreme example of that is if you've ever known someone who suffers with dementia or Alzheimer's, there's stories where that person might be singing passages that they remember, but they might not remember their loved ones or even their own names sometimes. And again, it's just where that melody and music is stored in our brains. So it's really, really powerful stuff. Again, why audio? Well, audio is everywhere. It's at radio, streaming services, mobile phones, podcasting, voice assistants. The list is really long. Vehicles, home assistants like Alexa. Think about like guided tours if you go to museums or things like that. Gaming, retail, applications. Basically, everywhere we're going, there's a microphone and a speaker. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerberg. And right now, another stat, 56% of Americans ages 18 and older use voice assistants. So it's not only everywhere, but like we're using it every single day for the most part. People are liking it. Another reason audio is really being heavily invested in by big players like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Spotify, Netflix. So if you pay attention to things like a leading indicator, when you see mega companies investing billions, yes, with a B, billions of dollars collectively in things like podcasting and immersive audio, you can bet that content will be swarming in, which presents a lot of opportunities. So if they're investing it, they're begging for that content, which means you can take control and start delivering that content, which and leverage all their investment to your advantage. So that's a little bit of why. But where do we start? So branding ties into everything. Think about your user in every situation and in every interaction. The best place probably to begin is creating an audit of your branding as it relates to audio. So, just think about like your visual logo. A sonic brand embodies the brand, creates trust, strengthens awareness, makes you more recognizable, memorable. Remember, we talked about, how music is memorable. So if we can create an association through audio with your brand, it's really powerful stuff. And if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, like what a sonic brand is, you've probably heard the tones from NBC, the bum, bum, bum. When you hear that, you can usually just think immediately, yeah, that's NBC. You don't need to see anything. You don't need to see the peacock. You don't need to be near the television. These things are really powerful. So you can take a look at your own company, just be honest. Like, do you have a brand? Are you thinking of it? If you're using it, if you have it, how are you utilizing it right now? And if you don't have one, how do you start? I mean, first of all, what is the brand? It's the voice or the tone of your brand. So it all comes back to, your core mission statement, your core values of the company. So you need to define it, get a pen and paper out or, get on the typewriter in your computer, define it, make a list. What is the mission? Create descriptive words that describe, what it is that your brand or your company does, really strong descriptive words, the stronger the stronger, more descriptive they are, the more powerful they are. And we're going to use those to sort of create an association later. But take a look at the demographic, of your audience and what your target audience is, and do those things actually overlap? Are the people who you're reaching, are they the people you're trying to reach? Your audio needs to embody these descriptors. So it just needs to make sense, just like your visual logo. Like you wouldn't have an insane, busy logo with, fire and brimstone if you're like a yoga studio. So like the same thing with your audio, like it just needs to make sense. These things are kind of obvious, but like when you start to actually put it down and make it intentional, make that list and think about it hard, then, these things are sort of revealed to you and kind of makes it easier for you to take those next steps.
Yeah, Adam, so when we're doing brand audits from a marketing standpoint, we're involving brand audit. Audio is just as key of a component as your visuals are. As we're finding out, we're seeing that the retention and recall of a brand 30 to 40% greater when used with audio. So when you're working on a brand audit or you're working on a new campaign or working on a brand, it's really important to be considering audio. It's typically something people kind of bypassed or saw themselves not, a big enough company to be utilizing audio in the proper fashion. But we're seeing more and more how important it is in your brand guide.
Yeah. I mean, the word that I like to use is like intentional. It's just using all 52 cards in the deck instead of it being an afterthought. Like, if you're adding audio in any of your creative, it can and should support the creative. It shouldn't just be filler, or it shouldn't be added because you saw someone else add it. So these are the things that, we think about, and we're encouraging you to think about as well, as you're creating this. And when you're using something like a sonic brand, it should be used whenever it is possible. I mean, just think about your visual logo. Like everywhere you've got a brochure, your website, anywhere that people have eyeballs, you want your visual logo or your branding. Same thing with, with the ears, your earballs, wherever you've got people's ears, whatever's making noise, make sure that that branding, that sonic brand is a part of it, so that it becomes just ingrained in the brand. Every time people hear it, they think of you. But if it's used sporadically or not consistently, it's kind of useless. It's just not going to do the job. These aren't things that are like seasonal. This is something that will live throughout the life of the brand, the company. And the more you use it, the more strong it becomes. So audio branding does go beyond just a sonic brand, like a tag or a sonic logo. So you could also think about, the voice of your brand, like literally, do you have a voice, a tone? So that could be something from, your phone system to the voice on your ads. You could consider using a person to literally personify the voice of your brand, like a consistent person, hire the same person, the same voice. If that person has that tone, that character that coincides with that list, of descriptors that we mentioned before, like it's a really good fit. That person could also exist on video. It doesn't have to be. You could give the person a name and create a character if you want. You don't have to, but that's another fun way to, again, just strengthen the use of a person or a character or a voice within your brand. But as in most things, consistency creates loyalty and memorability. It makes you more recognizable to your audience, simply put. And again, just thinking of the voice of a brand. If anyone is familiar with the Billy Fusillo auto commercials, his voice is unmistakable. And other ones like Gilbert Gottfried and Affleck. It doesn't have to be crazy or unique even to be effective, just as long as it's consistent. But those are good examples of brands that have just used a simple voice, words, tone, delivery. Much in the way of music, you create certain tones that go in order, certain sounds. It's the same thing. You create, a tag that's spoken with the same words by the same person, by the same way. It becomes just ingrained with the brand. So it can be very effective. Again, that can be in all places where you might use a voice for your brand. So you could think about, like, in the case of like home assistants or Spotify radio, any other audio only delivery channel, the more consistent you can be, the more recognizable the audio is, and the more impactful your story is, which at the end of the day, again, is really the bottom line, just to tell that story effectively, using all 52 cards in the deck, just being intentional with every asset you're creating. Another point is the experience, controlling the experience of the user through audio. We're talking about controlling the mood. It could be in your brick and mortar business, so physical locations where people are walking in, like what do they experience when they come in? Do you have music playing, and what that might be? It could extend to your video and audio creative as well. But curating music or audio that's consistent with their branding, again, I'm saying the same things, but an example would be, if you may not have noticed, but like hotels, for example, you might walk into a hotel, and especially some of the bigger ones with, big lobbies, big restaurants and bars, they're going to have music playing, but the music is changing throughout the day, and it's very intentional. It's curated to elicit a mood and a response from the people that are, patronizing their establishment. So that's going to change throughout the day. It might be more calming and sort of chilled out during the day. As you move into the night, it's going to become a little more lively, a little more higher energy. People are eating and drinking now, having a good time. You don't want them like bored and like, bringing their moods down and their energy down. You want it to be more active. So they're having fun, they're going to eat more and they're going to drink more. So it's just, utilizing music and creating an experience that will change people's moods, that will ideally affect them and urge them to buy more, spend more, have a good time. You may have noticed that you won't hear like bluegrass coming from a clothing store like Guess or Forever 21 or wherever you buy our clothes, right? We recently came across a brand. I remember this, I won't say the name of the brand, but Dan, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's a popular clothing line. They're aligned with the mixed martial arts world. So a lot of fighting. So you would think that their creative would have had a really high energy audio, rock, metal guitars, fast stuff. And we saw video after video of them like on yachts and sipping champagne in Miami, and there's like chill club music playing. And then you go to their website and it's all like black and red t-shirts, really bold lettering. There's beards and tattoos and muscles everywhere. And it's just like not consistent. It's very confusing. It's not providing a clear message or story or like a unified experience again. So it's just sort of taking control of what you have and just being aligned with the brand so that the people enjoying and hopefully buying your products and looking for you for your services aren't confused every time they experience what you have to offer. So every interaction, creating that experience with your audience that's containing audio, it'll ideally be curated with intention. That's the key word here, just intention, just really thinking about it. Why are you using this audio? Why are you using this music or this sound effect or this voice? Does it meet that guideline you wrote out, when you were creating the brand and when you did that audit? Does it align with your branding? Does it align with your voice? Is it creating a proper experience for the user? Is it either pulling focus away or is it bringing focus in to support the story?
Right. And getting back, brand cohesiveness is extremely important. But from a marketing standpoint, looking at things of using audio in your content strategies is really key, where a lot of companies are starting to utilize that more and more. Things such as delivery of content. We're all used to receiving video content or blogs or email marketing and those types of things. But now we're seeing and working in delivering audio via Alexa's, Google, so on and so forth, where it all lives within the same database, where we're pulling content and working audio into your content strategy so that we have more touch points. And in line with that, going back to what Adam was saying about environment, user journey is going to be, there's going to be a huge emphasis and should be a huge emphasis on your customer or your consumer experience, and using audio in that customer journey is something that you want to be considering when you're looking at, how you're marketing your company.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So last, let's just talk a little bit about content then, audio that is the focus, so obviously podcasting is a very popular topic. We can talk about that shortly. But why would you have a podcast? Well, it seems like everybody's listening to them. And according to Prosper Insights and Analytics, 67.6% of millennials and 50% of adults of the population in the US now listen to podcasts. So that's not a bad reason to get into it, but why? Sometimes it makes sense to go where they already are. So what you could do is this could be another extension of your brand, your voice, and an opportunity to create more trust, show authenticity, and have actual interaction. Most podcasts are, authentic, it's conversational, which I think can really help as long as like that conversation is heading in alignment with the rest of your brand. It could also be a chance to really confuse and bore. Like, just because people are listening to podcasts doesn't mean we need another podcast in the world. It really should serve an intention and serve the business and your goals. So when you're creating it, you want to decide, how are you going to drive the traffic and drive the audience to do the thing that you're looking for? And that could either be, simply creating a podcast that shows thought leadership, shows that you're an expert in your domain, in your niche. It could be storytelling, once again, just to create interest and get people to, maybe head over to your social channels that maybe are having a tough time. You can repurpose this content to social channels. to YouTube, which again is a search engine. So once again, people are looking for what you do. You're ranking in Google, and you can rank in YouTube as well. But it should always be an extension of the brand. So think about the experience again. This could be another chance to add in your sonic branding, or it could be a chance to create a new brand for the podcast specifically, but that's derived from the original. So not veering away from those core values and those descriptors from the audit, but it could be a possibility to brand it in itself. Same thing with music and sound design, like they should still be in alignment with the values of the company. Podcast could be as simple as something like an extension of your blog. So if you've already got a blog, this is an easy pivot. You could be repurposing them that way. But yeah, really, it can be used to drive traffic to your website, from your website, however you so choose. And moving forward to other pieces of content, like, there's apps like Clubhouse, Chalk, Green Room. These are audio specific places where you can take control of the experience and present yourself in a positive light, reinforcing your brand, showcasing your authority, creating an audience where people are looking for content, really. So instead of trying to force your way into a place, like people are already there and listening. Had to, sorry. You have anything on that, Dan?
Well, just from like a technology standpoint, we're using audio in apps, obviously using, artificial intelligence with audio, getting just really more creative with audio in general. There's like, Michelle brought up an app this morning, with an audio where it's a workout app, but it's zombies chasing you, and you can hear the zombies surrounding you, and it's like, I'm gonna pedal harder or run faster, but it's the experience, and looking at how we're doing that. We're doing it with, people being more engaged with the voice applications like Alexa and whatnot to be able to provide helpful information. So it's not always just a sales tool. It's also just, another extension of your brand and how you're providing value to your audience, and that could be anything from like a service-based industry, onto like food. Obviously, we all use it, like, hey, what's a good recipe? Walk me through that recipe. But, we've just built out something in the pest industry where we're looking at like, what is this creature and how do I deal with this, and walking them through that. So, audio should definitely be considered in your mixed media plan and strategy when you're doing any marketing for your company, business, or your project. So it definitely takes it to another level.
Yeah, Dan, I've noticed too, like things like, and in the content world of things like, YouTube and Clubhouse or podcasts, like that idea of being, we're always focused on sales and sales and sales. And in the end, you got to be focused on the bottom line and getting that buck. But these forms of content, like you mentioned, they can be the most unsalesy sales tool that you have. Just simply by just being authentic and providing free value about whatever it is without even asking for anything in return. Like those people come back and back and back when you're providing value, and eventually that can easily lead to a sale without you going, by the way, or I need you to do this, or without the ask.
Right. It's about the customer experience, the customer journey. It's so important moving forward when, it's a lot of static, there's a lot of noise. People are onslaughted with information and data at rates, only increasing. So, most companies should be focused on creating the best user experience and customer journey for their audience or their customers to enhance that. As an example, it's not audio related, but just to, a brief, quick example of a journey. If I bought an Apple computer and had it shipped to my house, they know when I signed off or that when that was delivered. 5 minutes later, I get a text message or I'm getting some information. Hey, do you want us to help you set that up? We have somebody on a teletech call, they can get on and we can help you walk you through that. So I think, to the emphasis on customer journey and how audio impacts that is at a level we've never seen. Obviously, it's exciting. It's not just about just music or audio background music. It's about, your actual marketing and your engagement and your brand cohesiveness with your audience. So, definitely take it into consideration when you're thinking about, next year and you're planning your marketing. How does audio come into play? Even just asking that question up front, just to talk about it, you'll make great strides.
Yeah. So we're probably going to wrap this up pretty soon. If anyone has any questions, feel free to hit them up in the chat. Hi, Shannon Howe from UK. Thanks for that. And Natasha, I'm glad you like the background. This is kind of new. But before we jump off, Dan, I got a question for you. What are some of the questions that you're receiving from clients when we're talking about, like, when going through like an audit or just talking about any sort of audio strategy? Like how educated do you feel like everyone is about the audio space and what it can do? Is it just like starting from ground zero and really walking them through all these things? Or are you finding that more and more people are already utilizing audio and they're just looking for like the next thing to add to the strategy?
It's rapidly changing on a national level for the bigger brands. They're in it, and they're investing greatly in it, because their question is the same question as a smaller company, is like, what's the ROI? Right. So they have proof of ROI, so they're investing deeply into it, as we know. The smaller companies are, now that it's become, cost effective, might not necessarily understand all of it yet, but they're very inquisitive, and are looking to do it, taking those steps. The biggest question is like podcast, which makes a lot of sense, but it reaches so many different spectrums. Like for one of the clients, we're creating that voice application I was talking about, where it's literally walking you through steps on how to help a client. It's about that user journey. What is the ROI? Just in simple, what we call pay-per-click advertising or video ads or those types of things, we're seeing a 30 to 50% more engagement when audio is used in the correct and best way. So, how are we looking at with blogs being turned into audio for that? There's also search engines are starting to recognize audio in a different place. So, we're pushing it pretty hard to be ahead of the curve, and it's proving good ROI and brand engagement at an all-time high, and brand recall is critical. So they're asking a lot of different questions. Some just don't, they're not there yet. But I think throughout COVID, just like with Zoom meetings and webinars, people are starting to use voice apps and voice applications more and more and more. So the acclimation is there, and we know it's here to stay. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, very cool. All right, everybody. Well, I think we can probably wrap that up. If you do have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to Dan or I. We're both on LinkedIn and pretty active there. You can head over to overit.com. If you have any questions, you can hit us up there. Dan, any closing thoughts, words of wisdom?
I think just basically when you're doing your planning or you're, starting a business or you're working on a marketing plan, just simply asking the question, how are we considering audio? I think that's your first step.
Yeah. Intentional storytelling. Yeah, good point. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Again, it's Dan Dinsmore. I'm Adam Claremont. You can find us again on LinkedIn or overit.com. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun and hope to talk to you sometime soon. All right. See you all next time.
Thanks, guys.